Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hey, it's Jer, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It's Tuesday, November 10th, 2020. On episode 632 of the podcast, Fletcher Sharpe steps up, and we talk about MSU basketball coach Tom Izzo's coronavirus diagnosis, Michigan and Michigan State football, the Lions, and moves with Tigers coaching. So let's just jump into it. Joining me as he does every week, Fletcher Sharpe, to give us sharp insights on sports. I can't help it, man. I'm a punster. I know you probably want to reach through the machine and grab me.
Yeah, I've never heard that one before.
Never, ever heard it at all, I'm sure. Anyway, I was hoping to get through a segment to not necessarily have to mention coronavirus because, look, I know it brings people down. I get it, but it's a real thing. And the latest is that Tom Izzo, the head coach of the Michigan State University basketball team, he has been confirmed positive.
Yeah, and that worries me a little bit. Not even for basketball. Like, I care about college basketball to a degree, but not enough to where, I'm just like, forget it, go out there and play. I'm worried a bit because he's older. I'm not saying he's like 100 years old or even like 80. I think he's like 65, 66. But like, as a high-level coach who's been around for a while, made a lot of deep runs in basketball, we've all heard him in the way he sounds when he talks at the beginning of the season, how he sounds at the end of the season. He puts tremendous stress on his body and his vocal cords. Him having a disease like that is not good. His body's very beat up. Maybe he doesn't look beat up physically, or maybe sometimes he does, depending who's looking at him. But like, his body's been through a lot. So to have him get hit with that is like very worrisome, because people who fit into his category of being in that age group, who've had their body go through a lot of turmoil, they could potentially die. And like, you don't want that at all.
Well, and so far he seems to have minor symptoms. I'm going through the press information from Michigan State. And one of the things that's interesting to me is that he talks specifically, I've been extremely diligent for many months now, wearing my mask in public and around the office while adhering to social distancing guidelines. And apparently he's been wrecking his brain, trying to figure out if there was any time he let his guard down. And I think for him and for all of us, the key thing here is there's this phrase, what I have determined is that this shows the power of the virus. And I think unless you do like a hard bubble, it's really possible for it to slip in so many different ways.
Well, that's where that A word comes in, asymptomatic, where people are like, it's not a real thing. You might get sick and like not really show any symptoms. You might have it dormant in there, and you might go like hug a friend, and all of a sudden they're sick, and it's like, where did this come from? Like, I don't want to think of it like, the Walking Dead zombie virus, where it's like we're all zombies when we die. But like, someone might have gone out and had a reckless moment and they might be carrying it. It's very scary. And as someone who has been inside for a very long time, like he has, it's terrifying to think that that might not even still be enough,
Yeah. I mean, you're somebody, not to share too much, but you're somebody in a high risk category yourself, right?
For those who don't know, I'm decently asthmatic. I actually had 4 pretty serious asthma attacks last year, like hospitaled, not really breathing moments, which are kind of terrifying. So when it came out that, yes, this disease attacks your lung and it's in the air, everyone in my family looked at me like, oh, no, you're not going outside. You work from home now. My doctor, I even called him and he was like, yeah, I'm not going to come see you right now. But you definitely just precautionary. Before they even told people like self-quarantine, he's like, you're just quarantining yourself. And then all of a sudden it came out that they're asking them to do that. And I was like, wow, this is nuts. And like, I'll admit, I have been out a few times. I played in a softball league. My team, knowing that I'm very asthmatic, my team's like, everyone's wearing a mask. Not just for him, but everyone's wearing a mask because I know it's a sport we're still far apart from each other, but like someone can get sick and can infect somebody else. And we don't want that to happen at all. So just to be safe, we're all going to wear a mask. And like, people laughed at our team because they're like, oh, that's goofy. You guys are wearing a mask, but coming out to do stuff. It's because we're considerate. But even back to the point you brought up, if I were to get COVID or someone like me were to get COVID, it would be very bad for us. You don't want that to happen to somebody if it doesn't have to happen.
Well, and to talk about the sports side of it for Michigan State basketball, it is a while until their season starts. So and we are all hoping for Tom Izzo's very speedy recovery. And if that's the case, it should have minimal impact on the Spartans team, right?
I mean, from sports-wise, yes. I feel like he probably had some communication with his players, maybe even a few practices of some sort. Maybe he wasn't there in person, but maybe he had someone there like giving instructions. Maybe he had someone doing something. Maybe the kids were just around each other working out or doing something of the sort. If he's sick and has come out, like they're definitely going to keep the players away from him just to make sure he's okay. But their first game's on December 1st against Duke. They have some time. If the quarantine process is 2 weeks, 2 weeks from now, he should be okay. Then again, we're not necessarily sure. Right now, he has light symptoms. His symptoms could get worse, could get a lot better. COVID attacks everyone's body differently. There's an NFL player who contracted COVID, young, fit guy, and he's been unable to play the entire season as a result. He's at the pinnacle part of his life health-wise, and he's unable to play. But then you have some people who are not so great, contracted, and all of a sudden a week later they're a lot better. So we really don't know how it's going to play out for him. But just given the guidelines we've been told, he should be okay by December 1st.
Well, I'm sure this can be said for a lot of Michiganders that we're all pulling for him. I guess going to pivot now and say, Fletcher, same old Lions over the weekend, right?
Yeah. Like I said at the beginning of last week, they beat teams you're supposed to beat and lose to the teams that you're supposed to lose to. And that's not a playoff team. And the Vikings showed up and beat the tar out of them. Albeit you kind of expected it without Matthew Stafford, but still they beat the tar out of them. I don't really know what to tell you at this point.
Well, I guess it's now just kind of the coach death watch, right? Unless they're just going to keep this guy and keep this going.
I think they're going to give him the season. I saw an opinion article written by the Freep where someone's like, don't blame the coach. The Lions are better than you think. And there's some good points in the article where it was basically saying yeah, the coach is making mistakes, but the players aren't playing hard. And that's totally a fair statement to make. But also, if they're making the same mistakes and not playing hard for the third year in a row, got to get rid of the guy. That's it. At some point, originally, the problems fall on the players if they're not doing it. But if they keep making the same mistakes, missing the same assignments, blowing the same tackles, blowing the same reads offensively, it's a coaching structural thing because you're allowing it to happen repetitively. At that point, it's on the coach. And if he's going to let that happen, especially when coming from such a disciplined organization like the Patriots, he's got to go.
So is this the time to hit the big reset button? Is it time to let go of Stafford too and just say, let's redo it and give Stafford a chance maybe to play for a team that can win?
I would do that if they had a young quarterback behind him. I don't want to do that and then have Chase Daniel behind him.
But we're losing either way.
We're losing either way. You just want someone to get some game time. At least with Stafford, there's a chance they might somehow turn it around. Very not likely, but there's at least a chance. Honestly, at this point, I feel like they should just keep him for the season.
Let him go in the offseason?
Right. If you let him go now, who's going to be your coach? Who's taking over? It's going to still be bad. You're essentially yelling then, we're tanking. We're not going to win anymore. At that point, you might as well sit every older starter because if you're really just going to start blowing stuff during the season, you effectively given up on the season, which all the fans have, but the team hasn't yet.
Yeah. With the Lions, in a lot of ways, it is what it is, and it's kind of frustrating to have the same storyline over and over again. There's only so many ways we can frankly cover this, so let's move on to something else. The University of Michigan. Interesting weekend.
Yeah, I said earlier, if Joe Milton can have a consistent game, they should beat Indiana. And he did not have a consistent game, so they did not beat Indiana. Indiana, who has an amazing quarterback now, really is all they really missed is an amazing someone to get the ball out and someone to be a playmaker for them. They have it now, and they're rolling. And Joe Milton had an okay game, I guess, but you can't really have an okay game against a nationally ranked team and expect to go forward. 18 completions, 344 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But not really much rushing, and I really know that's not his fault because, the offensive line can kind of collapse around you. I don't want to say fire Harbaugh like I was saying before, but the excuse you would have been these aren't my kids, this is not my recruiting, and these are definitely the kids you recruited. You went to their house, you spoke to their parents.
Oh, no, a key moment for me was in that, I think it's the fourth quarter where there was that interception when Michigan was starting to pull a little bit closer, and then there was just that interception that Indiana had them completely read. And it just looked hapless. Indiana knew exactly what Michigan was going to do, and it seemed to be telegraphed.
Well, that's kind of the thing that happens with Harbaugh offenses is if you can keep up with the cadence and keep up with the pattern, eventually you'll just figure it out. And I'm not trying to sell it short and say that Indiana's just reading, because that's still a good defense. It's still a good team. But the point I'm making is if your offense is that predictable, no matter how bad the defense is, they'll pick it up. But if they're a good defense, they'll pick it up and then do something with it. I don't really see them getting out of this hole to continue their season forward, especially when they have Wisconsin coming up, who's probably going to do the same exact thing to them.
Well, and the next opponent for Indiana will be Michigan State, and they did not have a good weekend.
Yeah, again, I said Michigan State is either going to have a close win against Iowa or not. And it's definitely the or not.
I mean, it's just so hard to watch football right now with just how bad it is across the state.
I don't really know what it is, but whenever they go to Iowa, games just get very, very kooky. And this game got very kooky for one team and not so much for the other. Honestly, most of the Michigan State fans were surprised they beat Michigan last week. And they're like, you know what? We're okay. We're okay with losing every game except for this one. Because, hey, like, we'll just beat Michigan and be fine. Like, that's the one game we really care about in the season anyways, which right now leaves just Central Michigan and Western Michigan as the two undefeated teams left in the state of Michigan in Division I football. And honestly, that it won't be able to finish that way because those two teams play each other in 2 weeks. So that's probably something no one predicted at this point so far.
Either one of those teams something to pick up on if you're looking for something to watch other than the train wreck that we're getting in Lansing, Ann Arbor, and Detroit?
No. No, they are not.
Well, on that positive note, let's move to the Detroit Tigers. They have a new pitching coach, and he is familiar to Michiganders.
Right. Chris Fetter, who was the pitching coach for the University of Michigan when they made their long run last year into the finals, is joining the Tigers. He's a very accomplished pitcher for the University of Michigan as well, lettering all 4 years, 3 times All Big Ten, 1 time All-American, played in the Los Angeles Dodgers system for a little bit, came back to coach. He gets the best out of his kids. I mean, Michigan got some pretty good recruits. I'm not going to act like they got like duds, but he got those kids who were 3-4 star players, had them pitching at a much higher level, had kids going high in the draft. Yeah, you want someone like that, especially when you have a really young team, because if he can get those young kids, really, really young kids, and help kind of push them in the right direction, if he can hop on his staff with some kids who are still maybe not college age, but still decently young and help kind of turn them around, that's great. And this is honestly the chance to do it because no one's expecting anything out of the Tigers. So this is a good opportunity to get some people in to work with some young faces, kind of start pushing them in the right direction, hopefully start another dynasty.
So it seems like you're a little bit positive about the changes over at the organization right now.
Yeah, if you're going to blow stuff up, I'm all for it. If you're going to like bring in the people to like work with it. Like when they brought in Ron Gardenhire, I thought it was a great, people were like, I don't know. I thought it was a great hire when they brought him in because Ron Gardenhire used to get the best out of his Twins teams. His Twins teams were not great teams, but he got the best out of those people all the time. So when he was unable to kind of get the best out of the Tigers, I'm like, all right, they're that far gone. He probably should go now. And he did. So they're going to blow stuff up. They're going to bring in a manager. Very controversial manager, obviously. But like even before Trashlet Gate, he still got some results, especially with like a team that wasn't necessarily old, wasn't super young, but wasn't necessarily old. He still got results. He was still able to reach those people. So bringing in another coach who's coming from a college arena who can definitely reach younger players, it's great. I'm all for that. If you're going to make a youth revolt and actually start trying to do that positively, say for Miguel Cabrera, I'm all for it because that's how you should be building your team. I will say really quickly, I didn't realize how much Tigers fans really, really did not want AJ Hinch to be their head coach after the last episode where I said, I didn't have a problem with what he did. A lot of my friends left me very not nice text messages. So I'm publicly apologizing to everybody for saying that because I don't want any more not so nice text messages.
That's interesting that there was such that kickback for you. I saw a lot of that same kickback myself. It's that worry that the spotlight will be on us for negative reasons yet again. And that's something that I think a lot of Detroiters and Detroit fans are very self-conscious about.
I went to go see a friend and I was like, hey man, how are you? And he's like, I'm not talking to you. I heard what you said in Daily Detroit. AJ Hinch is a cheater and I can't believe you'd condone it. And I was like, all right, man, fine. Bye.
Wow. Well, the people have spoken, Fletcher. Yeah, and you can speak to Fletcher at Saint FDW on Twitter. And you know what? You can also yell at him at 313-789-3211. That's our voicemail line. Fletcher, it's always good to talk to you, man. And talk next week.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
And with that, I'm Jer Stays. Of course, we will have some shows with news updates, things happening, more segments. Just wanted to try something out. We heard some feedback from y'all that you wanted us to do a sports-only thing once in a while, so we gave it a shot. What do you think? Anyway, thanks so much for listening. Take care of each other, and I'll see you around Detroit.